One dawn, Elena was startled to see King Theos' eyes flicker open. She could hardly believe it. "My king," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and fear. "You have returned to us?" Theos, though weak and confused, asked with a hoarse voice, "What has happened? Where is Garmas?" Elena's face fell and she told him everything. "Garmas has declared himself king, your majesty. He has drained the kingdom's wealth and left the people suffering. He has ruled with cruelty and the people, they live in fear." Theos' expression hardened. He felt betrayed, wounded, but also fueled by a deep sense of duty to his people. "I may be weak," he rasped, "but I will not allow this tyranny to continue." Elena nodded. "My king, you are still recovering. We must act carefully. If Garmas finds out you're awake, he will try to silence you." Theos agreed. Over the next several days he remained hidden, strengthening himself bit by bit under Elena's care. Meanwhile, Elena and the loyal servants began spreading word throughout the kingdom, whispering that the true king had returned. They moved carefully, choosing only those they could trust, knowing that Garmas spies were everywhere. The news spread like wildfire. The people of Zamba, suffering and desperate, found a renewed sense of hope. Families who had given up dreams of peace dared to believe that justice would be restored. Rebellion stirred quietly, and groups began secretly arming themselves, preparing for the day they could rise up and reclaim their kingdom. Finally the day came. Theos had regained enough strength to face Garmas, but Elena urged caution. "We will not go in unprepared, my king. The people are ready to stand with you, but Garmas is dangerous, and he will not give up the throne easily." And so a plan was devised. A trusted ally of Theos, Lord Arian, a noble who had been ousted by Garmas, gathered loyalists and prepared to lead a coordinated rebellion. Their aim was to weaken Garmas' guard and remove his allies within the palace, allowing Theos to confront him directly. Meanwhile, Garmas, unaware of the storm gathering around him, planned a grand feast to celebrate what he called his year of triumph. Nobles from distant lands and wealthy merchants were invited, along with many of the greedy officials who had aligned with him. The palace was adorned in extravagance, with golden banners and tables overflowing with food and wine, a stark contrast to the suffering outside the palace walls. As night fell, the guests arrived, their laughter and music echoing through the corridors. Garmas sat at the head of the banquet table, reveling in his perceived victory, raising his glass and toasting to himself. Suddenly, as the feast reached its peak, a loud crash sounded at the entrance of the grand hall. The doors were thrown open and the guards standing there stumbled forward, visibly shaken. Whispers spread like wildfire through the hall as a figure stepped forward, cloaked in shadows, his steps steady and deliberate. The laughter and music stopped. In the dim candlelight, the figure's face was finally revealed. It was King Theos. The silence was broken by a gasp. Garmas, who had been laughing moments before, went deathly pale, nearly dropping his goblet. He stammered, This cannot be. You're supposed to be dead?" Theos finished, his voice strong despite his weakened body. "No, Garmas. I am very much alive, and I have come to take back what is mine." The crowd parted, unsure whether to stand with Garmas or bow to their true king. Garmas looked around, desperation creeping into his eyes. He turned to the guards. "Seize him. This man is an impostor." But the guards hesitated. Rumors of King Theos' survival had reached even them, and they had grown weary of Garmas' oppressive rule. Sensing the change, Theos lifted his head and addressed the room. "People of Zamba," he called out, his voice clear and commanding. "For too long, you have suffered under the rule of a false king. I have heard of the suffering and sorrow inflicted upon you in my absence. I have returned to end this cruelty." The nobles and dignitaries exchanged nervous glances. Some who had aligned with Garmas tried to slip away, but the loyalists led by Lord Arian blocked the exits. Seeing his support crumbling, Garmas grew desperate. He stepped forward, trying to reclaim his control. "This is a trick," he shouted, his voice laced with panic. "I was the only one who had the courage to rule in Theos' absence. I saved this kingdom." But the crowd was no longer listening to him. Murmurs of support for Theos grew louder as the people remembered the peace and prosperity of his reign. They remembered the kind ruler they had loved, and they saw through Garmas' lies. Theos fixed his gaze on Garmas. "You betrayed me and my kingdom, Garmas. You used my illness as a means to seize power for yourself, and you ruled not with justice but with greed. Today justice will be served." At a signal from Theos, the guards who had once served Garmas surrounded him. Stripped of his power, Garmas dropped to his knees, pleading, "Please, my king. I was only doing what I thought was best." Spare me, I beg of you. Theos' face hardened. You speak of loyalty, yet you betrayed me in my darkest hour. You brought suffering to my people and nearly destroyed the kingdom I spent a lifetime building. Your crimes cannot go unpunished. At that moment, Lord Arian and Elena stepped forward. Elena, who had witnessed the toll Garmas' rule had taken on the people, could not hold back her anger. You have taken everything from us, Garmas, our peace, our prosperity, our hope. You deserve to face the same suffering you inflicted on others. With a signal from Theos, Garmas was led away, his pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. He would be held accountable for his crimes in a trial before the people, ensuring that justice was not only served but also seen by all who had suffered. With Garmas' downfall, Theos took his place once more on the throne. The people gathered in the palace courtyard, their faces filled with relief and joy as they saw their true king restored. Theos addressed them, his voice strong and resolute. My people, he said, I have returned to you, and I vow to restore Zamba to the prosperity it once knew. No longer shall you live in fear and suffering. Together we will rebuild and justice will guide us. Over the next few months, King Theos and his loyal advisors worked tirelessly to repair the damage done by Garmas. Land and wealth stolen from the people were returned, taxes were lowered, and the royal treasury was once again dedicated to the welfare of the kingdom. Villages were rebuilt, farms flourished, and the people of Zamba began to feel a renewed hope. Theos became even more beloved by his people, for he had not only restored their kingdom but had also shown them the strength of a true king. Zamba returned to its former glory, a kingdom built on justice, unity, and resilience. And so, the tale of the evil servant who tried to steal the throne became a legend told throughout the land, a story of betrayal, courage, and the power of justice. The people of Zamba would never forget the day their true king returned, and their kingdom was saved from the clutches of darkness.